I think the people that are being the most successful have the diversity of the types of content that they have. So they're doing reels, they're doing long form content, they're doing blog content, they're doing standalone, really high resolution fire photos of them looking fly. You know what I mean? And they're doing this diverse amount of content, because the biggest thing is knowing your audience. And a lot of times clients and ourselves, we assume what our audience wants to hear from us or what they like. But if you have a diverse array of content, you're reaching every audience member based on what they prefer. And so you'll see really great engagement on something very random, and then it's like, okay, how do we reiterate this? Because this random reel that we thought was low quality, was with your iPhone or whatever the case may be. Maybe our audience likes that really raw and organic content versus another client whose very polished content does very well. And so I think having that diversity and then using the data and metrics that you see from how those pieces of content perform, reiterate them. And if it's like a month where you need to make your ROI really quickly, do the one that's working the best all month long. And then next month, start being diverse again, because next month it might be a little bit different for your audience.
What's up, good people?
What's
How y'all
going
doing?
on?
Welcome to another episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast. And today, we're in AZ, right? We came together for a team retreat, and this has been the first time we've all come together like this without us having to be on site with a client. So we felt like this was a right opportunity to come together and talk about all things marketing and then just build a show out of it, right? But I got two very talented people sitting on the couch to my right. The first one is Kelsey Glass, who's the ultimate expert when it comes to marketing, digital, social, growth marketing, automation, everything that you can think of. She's been crushing it, been killing it, all that good stuff. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy I was able to finally come to a team event. I pop in and out, but this will be great. I'm excited for us to collaborate, talk about some of the things that we're working on, and then the future of CT. Like, what does that look like for us?
No, dope. We look forward to that. And then Justin, everybody knows Justin, right? Like, he's the dude he's the guy.
Number one content creator.
The number one content creator. It doesn't matter what time of day, night, he's sticking a camera in your face. But my main man from Toronto, welcome, man. Glad to have you here.
Brian, I appreciate you having me on your podcast. This is going to be a juicy one. I mean, truthfully and transparently, we've seen a couple of the questions that you're going to ask, and you guys are in for a ride. So anyone out there looking to get more information on content creation and the things that we do with our clients, this is the episode that y'all should be listening to.
So that's a perfect segue, man. So given that we're talking about content, we're an agency. We've been doing all kind of work with various types of brands, companies, people over the past handful of years. But content is just becoming more and more important, right? Like you really can't get out of it if you're a company that's trying to grow or even trying to sustain. And so given that we have the two of you here, what do you feel like, I guess, what would you say the state of content creation is today, creators, whomever it may be, and how important is it for companies to really embrace just becoming almost like a media company in a sense?
Yeah, I could definitely kick us off. I think there's so much opportunity in content, right? So you see every day new creators, new influencers being born. And one of the things that I like about Justin is that he's always working, always creating, because at any moment, that great quality content that you are producing can pop off. Now, obviously, there's a strategy to it that we'll talk about in depth about the marketing opportunities, but then there's still this opportunity organically for you to grow. And so I think that's the opportunity for creators and influencers. And then one of the things that I kind of want to talk about are the companies that are getting it right, the amount of money they spend on production. I have a client that spends a lot of money on production just to capture their experience at the events, just to capture testimonials from attendees. And that budget is larger than the overall marketing budget, right? And so I think when they're getting it right, they're seeing great growth, they're seeing more brand recognition, and it is almost exclusively due to great content.
Yeah.
What I want to add to that is this is the right time to be doing it. I was working with a real estate client of mine recently, and we actually talked about that he used to do content back in the day, like 12 years ago. But 12 years ago wasn't the time to be doing this.
Yeah.
Right now is. Like the same content that I'm creating for him now, he did back then and saw no engagement. But he was just not leveraging the right people, the right opportunities, and the platforms. Right now we have Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube.
It's the platforms.
Those are the platforms that everyone should be I mean, the growth of Instagram is crazy. Yeah. We all know how Instagram started. It was just a photo sharing app.
With great filters.
With great filters.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you can make these like 30 to 60 second recap videos that tell a great story and really impact and have a lot of value to your audience and really get these brands to grow in the right way. I actually wanted to ask you about, when did you start?
My business?
Yeah.
I've been in business for about 10 years now.
10 years. Have you seen, I'm curious to know what you were doing different like 10 years ago as opposed to today.
Well, I think part of it, I would say it was a little bit easier in a way just because we were producing only graphics, right? And so when you put that element in a video for an agency, quality comes into play, right? So then we have to outsource. We have to find good talent and good producers to produce for our clients. And so back then, it was easy for us to throw together graphics. So it was easier in that way to produce what clients wanted, but there was not the same type of growth that there is now when it comes to the quality of content that we're seeing. And so that's the biggest pivot that I've seen. And then I would also say engagement around either supporters or potential supporters. There's so much more engagement on your video content versus the graphics and flyers that we're promoting. It's sharing the same information. It all has a call to action for you to do the same thing, but the engagement is so much higher. So there's more loyalty being built with really good content.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, one of the things that we talked about collectively as an agency is really helping clients, getting them to understand the importance of really leaning into their stories. I think sometimes people either get intimidated by, the term of, all right, brand storytelling, or they just don't know how to do it, right? And so now we have these various formats and mechanisms in being able to tell your story, and no one right way is the only way to do it, or no one way is the only way to do it. But we've done podcasts, we've done branded content series for clients, we've done shorts. Like a lot of people are crushing it with reels or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, the people who are winning are the ones who are really deciding to say, you know what, I'm just going to be me on camera, or my brand is going to live authentically, and we're just going to display that. Like those are the companies, those are the individuals that I feel like have not only figured it out, but people connect to that much more deeply than things that are scripted and things that are just overly produced and all that. And so even as an agency, we have to be careful of not recommending that too many times or too much. But I'm sure you all have seen it too with, the folks that you all work with. It's like, once you get on camera and you start talking about, I did this and it's not the pretty, it's not the warm and fuzzies, it's not whatever it may be. That stuff drives like visibility and engagement and awareness around what it is that you're doing with your company. Yeah. So.
I thought you were going to lead in with a question, but
no, you did.
I absolutely agree with that. And just to touch on storytelling and how that is so impactful, especially for brands nowadays, because at the end of the day, we already know content is king, but anyone can create content. So then the question is, how do you differentiate, or how do you stand out amongst everyone? And that's actually a question for you. With all the clients that you service, what do you see all these brands doing differently? So they're not so cookie cutter.
Yeah, something kind of related to that question and what Brian was saying was, I think the people that are being the most successful have the diversity of the types of content that they have. So they're doing reels, they're doing long form content, they're doing blog content, they're doing standalone, really high resolution fire photos of them looking fly. You know what I mean? And they're doing this diverse amount of content, because the biggest thing is knowing your audience. And a lot of times clients and ourselves, we assume what our audience wants to hear from us or what they like. But if you have a diverse array of content, you're reaching every audience member based on what they prefer. And so you'll see really great engagement on something very random, and then it's like, okay, how do we reiterate this? Because this random reel that we thought was low quality, was with your iPhone or whatever the case may be. Maybe our audience likes that really raw and organic content versus another client whose very polished content does very well. And so I think having that diversity and then using the data and metrics that you see from how those pieces of content perform, reiterate them. And if it's like a month where you need to make your ROI really quickly, do the one that's working the best all month long. And then next month, start being diverse again, because next month it might be a little bit different for your audience.
What do you think? How do you work with folks? And I have my own thoughts around it, but not every platform is right for every company. for every brand, right? I think one thing people need to understand is really spend time, for lack of better words, mastering one platform and then figuring out which ones they need to branch out from there. What kind of checks and balances do you go through to try and advise to a client whether or not they should be on LinkedIn versus IG versus TikTok even? Obviously, YouTube is just becoming even more and more important. So I'd be curious to know just kind of the conversations that y'all have with clients as you recommend what platforms they need to really exist on.
So to Kelsey's point, it's all about your audience and where to find them. Obviously, we should be focusing on who your current audience is and obviously trying to continue nurturing them.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you can't drift off and make intentional videos for Instagram and TikTok. And I always say, like, the more professional or like clean, or if you're a luxury brand, luxury type of content should be on the feed of your Instagram, but make organic content on TikTok because that's where those types of videos thrive. I have a financial advisor client. Her videos on Instagram don't perform as well, but on LinkedIn, she's been able to get so many new leads, and she's actually been able to get a handful of accounts just because of the content that I've produced for her.
Yep.
So now I'm thinking, okay, financial advisor, this one niche, they should continue targeting LinkedIn.
You're learning.
But it doesn't,
You're learning using the data. Yeah.
It's in the data,
Yeah.
exactly. But it doesn't mean you can neglect like the other platforms. And we should also, the long form content, especially nowadays, is where I see true value. And I see like people that are actually getting like returning customers or people getting new clients is from the longer format content.
Because they're willing to invest their time in that longer form content. And I would just say, based on your client's comfort level, that really helps me determine what platforms they should be on. We were having this conversation a little earlier over breakfast. Like, if you don't want to be the face of your brand, or you don't have someone that can kind of be that, then LinkedIn might be the place for you, because you're not going to grow quickly on Instagram or on TikTok if there's not a representative or a person that people can like pinpoint as the brand, you know what I mean? And so a lot of my clients aren't comfortable with that, which is fine. But now I'm going to prioritize LinkedIn for you. Longer form content, thought leadership pieces, some video, but video recaps of the events. You may not be the highlight of that because you don't feel comfortable doing that. And they grow really well on there too.
Now, on top of this conversation, let's talk about growth, because I want people to understand one thing from this. We're not selling you something that is going to make you famous or like grow your brand in like a few months to a year. A lot of this stuff takes time. There are obviously anomalies where you can make a piece of content and you grow super rapidly. But I mean, you're a sports guy. I'm pretty sure it was either Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James. How long did it take either of them to get a championship ring?
Oh, years.
But they've always, like, they're great players. So why did it take so long?
Yeah, I mean, it's a process.
It's a process.
You may have all the talent in the world, but you got to make sure that talent works well with other people. You got to make sure it's the right set of circumstances. There's so many things that kind of go into that. And even as you kind of correlate that to business, even us coming together for a podcast, right, it had to be the right set of circumstances for us to even get to this point, right, where it's, all right, we've been working together for several years now, us collectively. And, you know, we've done a number of things in various cities across the country, really across the globe at this point. But this was now the right time for it, because you have continued to refine your expertise and your abilities. So has Vince, Morgan, everyone else in the room. And now is a time to where we feel like we're now in a good enough spot to be able to just really talk about it and share what's been kind of happening. So to answer your question, or to even address kind of your point there, it all just takes time. And so when you think about the content piece, it just takes time, and you just got to be willing to stick it out and show up. And even though we're trying to get better about it as an agency, there have been clients that we work with who we're helping them show up consistently. And it's a year, 2 years, 3 years even, before they even start to really see something from it.
And it also depends on your growth goals, right? So as we're thinking about that, I feel personally, as a Capricorn and as an agency owner, my growth is monetary. And so a lot of people's growth, generally content people's growth, is like, numbers, metrics, data, how many new followers do I have, which is great. But like if those followers don't convert for me or don't convert for a client who is looking to make more money, then it doesn't matter to me. But then I have clients who have the luxury of not needing more money, who just want more eyes on their brand and more brand visibility, or they want more signups, they want more members and leads. And so that could also look like some content perform really well, but the number of members on their portal is way higher than the number of followers that they have on some of their social platforms. So in that situation, it's a win in terms of growth. That number keeps growing and they're meeting their goals there. And social is growing well too, but it might not be like this extreme number that they would expect.
Do you find people, like the brands that you work with, they should have ambitious goals, but do you ever just kind of take it back and say, hey, listen, like these goals are great, but like what is the actual goal here, and how do we achieve that? How do you have that conversation?
I feel like that's a good question for you, Brian, because you're really good at level setting people who are like very ambitious or like need to kind of be brought back down that you're doing great work, you know what I mean, but it's not gonna pop in that way.
A lot of it, you do have to manage the expectations. We've been on how many meetings now where it's just like, okay, I hear you, but this is the reality of what we're working with right now. I think as long as you can root everything in like the data and like the strategy that fuels it, but then also, you know how it is, like when you're working with clients and you're managing the expectations, a lot of it is working with them to help them manage their own perspectives about what the thing is. And so sometimes they may come to the table and they have 5 or 10 different things that they want to see done with this content, but it's based on a personal situation or a personal preference, and it's not really rooted in, this is the goal that we have for the brand and the company, and this is how much money that we have to spend on it, and this is the timeline that we're looking at. And so if there's anything that exists outside of that, then that's where we kind of get them back focused and say, no, remember when we had our kickoff call, right? We said that this was the number that we were trying to hit, and we were trying to hit it by this time in particular. What you're bringing to us right now is, we hear you and we acknowledge that, but not right now, maybe later. So I think it's just a little
more specifics. Like what goals do brands typically want to reach other than obviously monetary?
A big part of it is money, right? Like they want to help drive in revenue. A lot of times they want to help drive in the cost for them to acquire a customer, right? So if they're spending 10, 15, 20 grand on ads, then what does that do for them as far as opportunities and leads? To Kelsey's point, what does that do for them? From a standpoint of, well, how far can my budget actually go? And so if we can help them kind of like remove or reduce the amount it costs for them to actually generate a lead, that's a huge win. And so some of them may have high acquisition costs, and so now they're afraid of running ads because they really haven't like refine that engine a little bit. A lot of times it's more than just running an ad and having a video. There's a lot of other factors that play into getting low acquisition costs that helps drive revenue and bottom line impact for them. It's a lot of things. To Kelsey's point too, it's a lot of clients just want awareness. Like we have a client right now that we're working with, and he literally came to me and said, hey B, we need 1 million impressions in like 2 weeks. Okay, that's a programmatic
That's real
play.
easy to do.
Yeah, it's really easy to do. I'm like, what are you exactly like? What are you
if
trying to?
If that's the baseline, I can get you there.
Like, I'm trying to drive, sign ups to this site or traffic to this site, and so there's a whole conversation that's connected to it, and making sure you're keeping them honest around what they want. Because if at the end of it they're like, well, we didn't get this, we didn't get that, then it's backing them back to the point of, remember when this is all you asked for.
So when do you get to a point where you tell them, okay, this is what you want, but when do you get into the driver's seat and tell them this is actually what you want? Like, because people don't know what they don't know. So if they're coming to you saying like, oh, this is what I want, when do you ever go up to them and say, well, this is what you actually should be aiming for?
I'm sure we have a similar perspective on this. A lot of it is rooted in those upfront conversations, especially in kickoff and strategy sessions, because you often get clients who will throw the kitchen sink at you as far as all the things that they want. But if you can't build out like a roadmap for them, and it can't make sense to them in their eyes why we may do this to get to that, and like the timing and the pacing of that, then you find yourselves in situations where it's just kind of like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
So in certain cases, depending on the relationship, you can subtly advise them, or other clients that we partner with.
You build trust that way too, right? So eventually you get to the point where they just believe what you say because you have, proven and have results. But I would say in terms of the upfront research audits, like I always audit any client that I'm beginning to work with, all their digital platforms, their email, like telling them where their audience actually is. Like, we want 10,000 followers on Instagram. I'm like, well, actually the majority of your target audience demographics based on your current data is on LinkedIn, right? And so helping them see something that's black and white helps, what you're saying to them or what you're suggesting makes sense to them.
One thing I do want to talk about, like specifically CT, one thing I can really appreciate is the growth mindset. You love being able to show growth with companies and brands that you work with. And I feel like that's very important, especially in this industry, because it's a testament to what you can actually provide. So like when you work with brands, especially starting off with them, and in a year, maybe 2, maybe 3, you see genuine growth. And then how would you leverage that?
How would I leverage the growth?
Yeah, like how do you showcase growth within brands and companies?
Oh, I mean, a lot of it is tracking the data and the metrics around it, right?
But what do people care about?
What do people care about when it comes to their growth?
brands and companies?
They either want to make more money, they want to get more visibility, they want to have more impact. The impact piece is a little bit tougher to measure, but in many instances, if you can say, hey, we've grown, to Kelsey's point, your followers by this, or we've helped drive in more traffic to your site and this converted into X amount of signups and purchases, then that's growth. If we say, hey, we've put your message and your product in front of 5 million people, like it's reached 5 million people, and we can back into like click-through rates and all those different things, then now they can look at it and say, all right, well, we actually got more customers or more hits. Now we have more customers, and the lifetime value around it. Like there's a lot of things that they care about.
Partnerships too. I think about that too. Like, let's say you're not seeing like traditional growth, but you see really great partnerships come into play because you had some great content, you produced some great thought leadership pieces, and now you're collaborating with really big brands on things is a result of the great marketing work.
Yeah.
To that point, what I love about working with CT and like just a bunch of like, you have like a great network. Like CT knows a ton of people. And with that, we kind of, tell me, like, do you kind of leverage the opportunities that come your way to find bigger brands? Or like, how do you leverage your network?
How do you leverage your network? It's just by, anyone would tell you, like, I'm very intentional about just reaching out to people and letting them know, even if we're not doing much on the content front right now, but it's like leveraging people and reaching out and letting them know, like, hey, these are the things that we have going. But the other part of it is I would like to think I'm a really good listener, but I also go to people, and I've always kind of been that person where people would just say, hey, I have this situation or I have this issue. And then if I can provide a solution to that problem, then I'll offer it up. And if not, I'm like, yo, I'm pretty sure I know someone that can help you with that. And I'll just make the introduction that way. So that's really been kind of a thing for me personally. And now trying to do that at scale is really exciting because now it's leveraging different channels and different things of that nature to build that community, to leverage it in a way.
Yeah. I used to hate how important networks were, and now I love it.
Yeah.
And I used to be so anti, like, your work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
You show up, you submit your RFPs, it speaks for itself. And I had this group of students getting their MBA from George Washington do like a project on my brand for like next steps and suggestions. And they're like, how do you get new clients? Like, what type of RFPs do you go after? And I'm like, literally my biggest clients have came from referrals, or people knowing me or knowing of me and making a recommendation. People don't want to go through 200, RFPs to pick the agency. They want to know so-and-so that works in the building knows someone who actually ended up being great once we interviewed them, like showing up well. And so like the network is so important. Like I have never pitched ever.
Yeah, to that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for obviously we know what RFPs are, but for the audience out there, what's an RFP?
It's a request for proposal. So when you see an RFP, if you're an agency owner and you want to get a new opportunity or a new contract, you usually have to submit that.
See, I find that very interesting because my referrals is obviously a huge one, but my way of getting a lot of my clients is strictly content. That's how Brian found me. Literally just creating content. And the content back then is worlds different from what it is now. So I'm actually still kind of like, it's crazy that you saw that stuff and was just like, oh, like, let's bring this kid on.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very specific thing that you were doing at the time that I knew the client that we were working with or are working with needed.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other part of it too is you may, I know I don't want you to shortchange yourself, but you are also the most responsive too. Like having the talent and the ability to do the thing, but then also the way in which you show up. And I say that for everyone in the room.
Yeah.
That is a huge factor into like who we bring into the fold to work with the clients that we work with. So everyone that I've seen in this room, you all can't see everyone, but I can see them, right? Everyone shows up in a very professional and intentional way, and that goes a long way. And the clients notice that. So if they see us, and you know how we move, we rock a lot of the same stuff sometimes. But I think those two go hand in hand. Like you got to have the ability, but you got to show up.
And it's really hard to find those people like you, Justin. Like you've been here for a while, and just even the team now, it is so hard to find people who show up the same exact way as you. And so it's hard to bring on new people or to put people in front of clients that you can trust, where you don't have to like manage the whole situation and they can go off and just do what they need to do. And so being able to have a synergy, being responsive is all meant to be, obviously, and showing up the same way, you know?
Yeah.
I just want to share a quick quote that I've been spreading recently. I used to always think it was luck. I was like, oh, I'm so lucky that Brian reached out to me. I'm so lucky that I got the opportunity to fly out with the team. I'm so lucky to work on events with you guys. I'm so lucky that people are continuing to reach out. But this Roman philosopher by the name of Seneca says, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And for me, preparing myself to continue showing up, creating content, and doing all the things prepared me for when these opportunities arose. So for anyone out there, understand like when you're creating content, one thing you should think is that's preparation. You're really showing up every single day and preparing for any possible situation to come your way. It's like, oh, I'm trying to think of a specific brand that we can work with or I can talk about. This Active Remedy Club client of mine, we're starting to create this whole new series that is based around their coaches. Because when people see their coaches, we want the story that we want to tell is, hey, resonate with this coach, their lifestyle, and then you'll probably want to take their recovery class, because if you share the same values, you do the same things as them, knowing that they also need to recover, you should probably take their class. That's kind of the mindset there. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate you for saying that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that, I think Morgan's giving us a signal.
Yeah.
That was a really, really smart quote. Yeah, I'm like, damn, Justin's smart as hell. Like, how do you even
Justin
remember
loves
that?
a
Like,
quote.
yeah,
Justin
he loves a
loves
quote. Like,
There's someone that said
The next episode, I'll hit you guys with
like, he
another
always
good one.
have about 5 in the hip pocket that he's ready to like push out.
So the CEO of Instagram actually came out with a video. Do you guys know why we don't post long form videos on Instagram, right?
I feel like you have an answer for us.
The CEO of Instagram said Instagram is meant for short form content to be shareable. So, and we know that long form content, it's more consumable as opposed to like, I'm not going to share a long form video. I'm going to share memes, anything valuable. A lot of stuff that I share with you is like some projects that and like content. I do share a lot of things with you, don't I?
Yeah, you share a lot of things with everybody, Justin.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the purpose of Instagram.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, how important is engagement?
Engagement is very important, and above likes, right? It's the shares and the saves. That really helps to get your content in front of people, at least currently, right? The algorithm changes all the time, but currently what's go are saves and shares. And then to Morgan's question about how do incentives work with trying to get new followers in, like reshare this and like this and you'll have a giveaway. I think that really depends on the audience, right? Again, and knowing your audience. I have a client that I love whose core audience is college students. That stuff works amazing with them. I get overwhelmed. We're running right now a campaign. We're giving away MacBooks and iPads for school, and we probably had like 300-400 entries. In 2 days, we probably gained like 500-600 followers. Very rare, all organic. Share this, tag 2 of your friends, share this, make a video. We're requesting that they make a video testimonial, and they're doing it. Now, we haven't had 200 videos, but I expected that. But they're rolling in, and so I think that depends on your audience. At my nice age, will not be doing your tag and post and give to your story, because there's no guarantee. Also, I have picked giveaway winners, so I'm like, it's so many giveaway entries, you're not gonna win.
But I think that speaks to not only the audience, but why we even call this thing heavy on brand, right? Because that is consistent and true to that particular brand.
Yep.
And so some of that stuff is not, in my opinion, relevant to other companies.
Other brands, for sure.
It can come off as fake, not being authentic. So you just have to be really, really careful. And we just always encourage people to just really just turn inward. Like, who are you really? And sometimes companies they can't really answer that. They're like, we don't know. Or you have maybe 2 people in leadership that are regurgitating this particular, statement or brand purpose or mission or whatever it may be. And you have these other 2 people who think it's completely different, right? So how do you even reconcile that? And the quicker those people or that unit can figure that out, then everyone else within the company or the organization will start to get in line and act accordingly. So it's focus on the brand, man.
What tips do you have for brands out there if they want to grow on? Like, obviously, our big push right now is socials. Like, what's your tips for brands out there?
To grow on
socials? Man,
lean into stories. Storytelling. Storytelling. I mean, the ones that we have been working with, the ones that we look at and that we are, motivated by, and that we look at them and say, yo, they got it right. They're leaning into the story. They have stories about their founders. They have stories about their customers. They have stories around their product and how it came to be. Like, they're breaking down every single facet of their company, of their organization, and creating almost, I forget what word you used earlier, but they're creating kind of an environment or an ecosystem of content that's all story driven, right? Because here's the other thing that I'll say, and I notice a lot of companies do this. Sometimes people get so excited to sell a thing that all they want to do is sell a thing.
Yeah.
And every piece of content that they shove down your throat is them asking you to buy this.
There's like a quote, like it should be 70-30 or 80-20, like 70% value, 30% selling. I would agree with Brandon.
I don't know who's Brandon.
I'm Morgan, so okay.
Oh yeah,
sorry, Vince. But I would say be consistent too. So I think one of the benefits of having someone like you who could batch people's content so that they can then roll that out over months, because it feels like a lift to show up every other day on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you're prioritizing. But that consistency is helpful because it keeps you and keeps nurturing you in front of the people who care about your brand. And when you're not consistent, they forget about you. It's oversaturated. There's so many people who do similar work or adjacent work. And so you can be drowned out if you don't show up consistently.
And you know what? I will say the power of partnership is so apparent in CT, because I wouldn't be able to show up the way I show up at events without, shout out Valentina and obviously you, being able to really like indulge yourselves into the brands that you work with. You know what story you want to tell. You know what type of content that they want. And you basically feed that to us, and I say, okay, let me put my twist to it. Let me and my team show up, shoot the podcast, shoot the newsroom, shoot the event, create these like women on the street type of videos, because we know you've done the research. We know what audience they're trying to reach. We know what questions, and I obviously couldn't have done it without you guys. And so that's why I'm saying, like, whenever you're trying to grow a brand, like if you're an agency trying to grow a brand, like, make sure that the best people are in the seats that they need to be.
Oh, that's so important. That's so important. And I think, we had a conversation last night, around dinner, and this will come up in another episode. But when I started CT, the very first thing I told myself is, all right, anyone that comes into the fold, like, they have to be experienced in what they do, because there's a certain level of business acumen that you need to have with the type of clients that we work with. You have to understand the why behind the thing that you do, because people know, especially seasoned leaders. I mean, we've all seen this. They know when they have rookies at the table, and that is the quickest way to lose credibility, the quickest way to lose trust. But then the other thing I would say, how we build that trust with the people that we partner with, is we're not trying to get every single client in the world. Like, we want to work with a small group that understands the value that we bring to the table. But to your point, we know that we can go in and we can spend a lot of time with them and really start to assume and become their brand over time without them needing to be involved in every single thing, because they trust what we create, they trust what we recommend, they trust the decision making. So that will always be at the foundation and core of what we do.
And great people give you the capacity to dig into brands like that too, right? If everyone is owning their job and doing it well, great agencies become part of those client brands. And so you're in there, you have to understand them really well to market them really well. And so if you have a small, great group of clients with great support and team members, you can actually become a member of their brand and be able to share it the same way that they do.
Now, with your point, making sure we partner with a small group of people that are actually growth oriented. Because, I mean, I would rather have 5% of 100,000 than 50% of 100. You know what I mean? So being a small part of something bigger than being a big part of something small is definitely like at the forefront of my mind whenever I'm working with like any brand. When I first started, I used to work with everyone, no matter how big, no matter how small. And you got to learn this quick. It will burn you out so fast.
We all got stories.
So fast.
Yeah.
They'll be very demanding too.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah, the smaller paying clients, they ask for the world. While like the bigger clients that actually know that the stuff that we do works, they're just so much easier to work with.
Yeah, for real, man. Well, this has been a very good combo.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the first one because it's going to be one of many. But this is the first one that we've shot today. So, but as always, I'm super appreciative to have such amazing talent at the table. I tell people all the time, man, y'all make me look good. I don't have to be everywhere. I don't have to show up on every call. It's like, Justin's doing it. All right, cool. Kelsey, I'm good. Just let me know what y'all need from me. But anyway, there's more to come. Appreciate everyone tuning in. If you want to learn more about this podcast, be sure to check out thecarbonthread.com. Check us out on social at thecarbonthread.com. And I think we're going to get something going on YouTube too. We have a page, but we don't have many subscribers right now, but we'll get better.
What's that growth going to look like?
What's the growth going to look like? I don't know. That's why I got the two of y'all at the table. Y'all figure it out. But no, I appreciate it. And until next time. If you enjoyed this episode of the Heavy on Brand podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And if you need more information on all things marketing and branding, check us out at thecarbonthread.com. Until next time, stay heavy.